I'm Cathy from Absolutely Fabulous, and today we're going to work on another chalk paint by Annie Sloan project. Chalk paint is a wonderful decorative paint. Its probably four biggest attributes are no prep, so no sanding, no priming, no anything to get it ready, except one thing. You need to clean it off. You need to make sure your surface is all clean. You want to get rid of any dust or any grease that might be on it, because the paint obviously won't stick to that, or it'll stick long enough that once it's dried the dust will fall off and so will your paint. Grease being left on it also means that it might lift. It also has no scent, very low VOCs, so you can work with this and it's not going to cause you a lot of problems by smelling it and being too strong. There's a little bit of scent to the wax that you use after if you want to put a finish on your paint, a luster, because there's a little bit of mineral spirit in here. It's a beeswax and mineral spirit, and the mineral spirit helps keep the beeswax soft. The other thing about this paint, it's fast. That is probably one of the best things. You start with paint and you are literally finished in minutes, especially when you're doing something little like this project. We all have something this ugly. A little pot of project paint is going to cover probably 3 or 4 of these trays easily. So I'm working with a big can because that's what we're using in the store for our demos. So I am going to open, whoops, I'm going to put, this is a beautiful Napoleonic blue, so rich. Little mental pictures of Napoleon there in his uniform. You just dip the end of the brush. You don't require a whole lot of paint. You don't need to put your brush all the way in. The brush holds an awful lot of paint. This paint is beautifully pigmented. That means that there's a lot of color saturation. It's not going to take very much to actually cover this tray. Now I'll probably do 2 coats just because that'll make it a stronger finish. And it'll be darker and more intense, which I like, especially with this color. Napoleon was a pretty intense person. Probably would like his paint to be that way. Just back and forth. You don't have to be all that careful about how you're painting. Just paint. Play with it. It's like going back to kindergarten without a teacher. And now I want this tray to have some texture, so I'm just going to go back and forth and give it a little bit of texture. Load a little bit of paint where I think it needs a little bit more. I'm going to set it aside and let it dry. Drying on this, that's one of the reasons it's so fast. Drying time on this paint, if I put a fan on it in optimal conditions, probably be about half an hour to a good dry time. And then I'm going to put a second coat of paint on just to make sure I have good coverage and to create a little bit more texture. And then we're going to wax it. So this is my Napoleon blue tray. I painted 2 coats, and it's a bit hard to see the detail, but my second coat was a fairly thick coat of paint, and I used a hair dryer to dry it quickly, and that set up some very gentle cracking in here. Now you're not going to see the cracking right off the bat, but I'm going to put a coat of wax on it, and I'm going to use my clear wax. And as soon as I do that, you can begin to see it darken. I'm doing light coats quickly, and I'm using it back and forth to get it into all the little nooks and crannies. I'm doing that partly because I want to protect this tray when I'm using it. A tray is often used to carry, obviously, food products around, and they could be wet on the bottom. But in order to show that crackling a little bit more, I mixed some of my white paint. I used old white, and I mixed it with a little bit of the wax, the clear wax, and I'm just going to pick up a bit of that, and I'm going to brush that in. And now you can see that you'll be able to start to see the cracks show, just a little bit. Don't want it to be a lot. I'm just softening down that blue. Now, a waxing cloth is one that you're going to throw away. You don't want to start taking your waxing cloths and putting them through your laundry, because if you do that, somebody's going to be very cranky when the washing machine gets all full of wax and stops working. And in my house, that would be me. So I'm just going to wipe away some of the wax. And you can see as I'm doing that, you can begin to see some of the cracks come out. Going to continue to wipe away. When I fill up my cloth, and it will fill up with wax, just fold it over and start again. Now right here I have a smooth section. I'm not expecting to see very much of the wax there because there are no cracks. The other thing you could, it's hard to see it on the camera, but the more I buff, I'm also beginning to get a polish here. I'm getting a luster from my wax. It's becoming very smooth, very shiny, and it's going to give me a great water resistance to my wax. I don't know if you can see that light or not, but I'm just going to keep going over this and continuing to buff it. And then if I get to the very end, what I'm likely to do is put a final coat of clear wax, let it dry for about 20 minutes, 15 or 20 minutes, and then really give it a good hard buffing. And that's going to give me a nice solid surface for my tray so that water isn't going to go down and leave marks on it. I'm going to put this tray aside and let it sit for probably a week or so before I really start using it. That gives the wax and the paint time to cure. It will take up to 21 days for it to cure completely. So even though it appears dry, it's not actually hard all the way through. And that really depends on your humidity. In the winter, it might dry faster. In the summer, it might take longer. But there you go, ugly tray into something that you're proud to put on the patio.